Today on Can Haz Armory, why we have FIE gear, the Smirnov story. Okay, so before the Smirnov story, let's talk about what FIE means, because it's attached to that. FIE has two meanings in our sport. First is the initials of the ruling body, International Fencing Federation, or in my very bad French, the Fédération Internationale d'Escrime, right? But for material items, FIE refers to items that are homologated, made in accordance with specific rules in the rule book. And I'm not talking about the foam in the chest plate for foil, or points for epee and foil, or things of that nature. I'm talking about safety items. Okay, the mask, the saber glove, jacket, underarm protector, knickers, and the blades themselves. So the rules have certain requirements, and those requirements come out of Vladimir Smirnov. So here's the story. And I tell you not just to scare those who are new to the sport, but to tell you why this gear is required at international events where a lot of power playing is going on. The incident was 1982 at World Championships. Dan Deschênes was there. And this is how he tells the story. Vladimir Smirnov was a Soviet fencer. In 82, he was the defending Olympic and world men's foil champ. This is a guy at the very, very top of the game then. He was fencing a team match against Germany, West Germany at the time. This is before unification. I don't think East Germany had a program. Against a guy named Matthias Baer. At one point in the bout, Smirnov lunged, Baer fletched. At the same time, Baer hit Smirnov, the blade snapped. It happens all the time. The blade popped up, hit Smirnov's mask. Didn't stop going. It actually went through the mask. It hit Smirnov above the left eye, not in the eye itself, but in the eye orbit, the bone, and went through into his head. Baer did not realize what happened, and we recovered, withdrew the blade. Smirnov collapsed. Dan heard that. He was on the strip next door, turned and saw Smirnov get up, go back to his on-guard line, kind of on autopilot at this point, come on guard, start spasming, and then collapse again. Took him to the hospital, put him on life support. He never regained consciousness. And as Dan told the story, his wife was going to come down from Moscow, and they told her, don't, save the trip. He's not going to make it. We'll send him home. The Worlds kept going. The last of it finished about 9 days later. They terminated life support at that point because nobody wanted him to die during Worlds, and he passed very, very quickly afterwards. Now, keep in mind that in 1982, there were no manufacturing standards compared to today. The uniforms were heavy cloth, there was canvas, sailcloth, that kind of thing. Masks were weaker. They had regular carbon steel blades. I have no idea what the testing procedures were at the time. Other older armorers might be able to tell you. It was a lot, if you compare it to modern gear, it was a lot more risky. But his fatality is why FIA decided to significantly increase safety levels, which is why we have, for the all the clothing stuff, a higher resistance to penetration. It's required to be 800 newtons of resistance to penetrative force in the glove, the jacket, underarm, and knickers, and 1600 newton in the bib, because you have the carotid and jugular right here. In the early days, it was Kevlar. Actual sheet yellow Kevlar, because that was the only game in town for ballistic fabrics. And in fact, it wasn't the entire uniform. It would be, like, as a right-handed fencer, you had it covering this side, because that's where the weapon was likely to hit. In the knickers, it was in what's called the indigo region, which is basically, from the just above the belly down through the crotch into the legs to protect the femoral artery and other big blood vessels in the legs. Masks. The mask Smirnov was using, Dan estimated to be about a 7-kilo mask when he got it. Current non-FIA masks are 12 kilos, which is the rate of the punch we put on. FIA masks are, I think, 25 kilos. And I'm sorry, ain't nobody gonna hand punch that sucker. So they're much, much stronger. I mean, there are some masks. Leon Paul Exchange masks laughs at the probe. He goes, "Bring it on, no problem there." But that's why the gear is there, because of Smirnov's fatality. The blades, though, different thing here. The blades must be made of what's called maraging steel, which is a combination of martensic and aging. It's a manufacturing processes. The way they test them is they'll put them on a test rig and they'll bend them, this way and then that way, more than I'm bending it, a specific number of times. I don't remember how many times it is. I think I remember one time seeing it was 8,000 cycles, complete cycles for epee and like 15,000 for foil. I have to look it up. Sabre is just now being homologated. I don't know what the protocols are for testing the Sabre blade. I don't even know if they're officially required at FIA tournaments yet, but epee and foil have to go through that kind of testing procedure. X amount of cycles before they break. Now, here's the thing about FIA blades, about maraging steel blades. You'll often hear this urban legend from folks saying they're designed to break flat. No, they're not. You cannot do that because the breakage points all over the place. The only difference between a maraging steel blade and a carbon steel blade is the propagation of cracks through the material in an FIA blade is 10 times slower than that in carbon steel, which means less breaks, which means less potential follow-on injury. So maraging steel blades don't break flat. The breakage patterns are identical to carbon steel. They seem to break much less frequently. That's the diff. Anybody tells you they're designed to break flat, they don't know what they're talking about. So that's where we have the FIA gear. That's where it comes from. Various countries require different levels of FIA gear. The U.S., the only FIA gear require, again, I'm not talking the chest plate for foil, is the glove and saber. Other countries, I think the UK requires 800 Newton underarm protectors above a certain age level. It's going to vary from country to country. If you're competing, though, if you're going to an international tournament, FIA across the board, you have to have it. If you don't have it, you're not going to fence. I had a couple gloves come in at the Ontario Regional recently. They were giving me it to check, and I knew right away they're not FIA gloves. So nope, couldn't pass them because the requirement is FIA gloves. One reason we're safe sport in the U.S. is armors like me are anal about the safety side of things, because none of us want the Smirnov on our watch. That's why the rules, M25 I think, gives the armor the right to test any gear he suspects. My personal policy, I suspect every mask hits my desk. I don't care if you're an Olympian, if you won a gold medal, if you were world champion, don't care. Bring your mask to my control station, the punch is going on it. Too bad, because I wanted the to be safe. Have there been incidents in the U.S.? Yes, there have been. The law of averages, someone's going to get hurt. The last serious one I know of in the U.S. from a broken blade was about, I want to say 7-8 years ago. Happened at Nationals. I was not there, but the way I heard it was round of 4 in Div 1 or Div 1A men's saber. Broken blade, got through a competitor's knickers, both sides, through and through. And he didn't realize he got hit. And the bout finished, he had to pull him off, says, "You're done." "What do you mean?" "You're bleeding." "Oh, didn't see that." He's fully recovered. I saw him the next year afterwards. He's completely recovered now. But that's rare. Have there been serious injuries overseas, fatalities? Yes. From not wearing the proper safety gear. But even FIA gear. Two pair of people were over time, a few months apart, about 15 years ago, I think, were practicing and no underarm protectors. Blade snapped, got through, hit either the subclavian artery or the lung, killed them. And one guy, and I'm trying really hard not to speak ill of the dead here, cut the sleeve off his underarm protector because it was bunching up and not being comfortable. In the competition, blade snapped, got through his jacket, and there's suddenly nothing else there between his skin and the blade. He got hit, he died. So always wear the underarm protector, wear the proper safety gear, treat it properly. Don't leave your mask in a musty area to go all rusty and crap, because I had one this weekend that we had to scrub the crud to get the rust off so it'd pass. It was a saber mask. So care for your gear. It's there to protect you. And the gear is there for a reason. The more expensive, more protective gear is there for a reason. We don't want another Smirnov. No one wants another Smirnov on our watch or anybody else's. So that's why FIA gear exists. That's the Smirnov story. As always, Happy armoring.